So we're glad to have with us Mousa Sondoqah, who's the head of AI at Becquerel Institute, and the title of of him says what he will be talking about: status and outlook for digital and AI solar solutions, AI solutions in utility scale solar. And yeah, it will be great to learn more about what ChatGPT and others are doing to the future of utility scale solar. Mousa, the floor is yours.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michael, for the introduction. Let me share my screen. Visible, the screen?
Yeah, all perfect.
Perfect. So thanks again for the introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm Mousa from representing Becquerel Institute Italia. And today we'll be talking and presenting about the status and outlook for digital and AI solutions in utility scale and solar. So what we expect to see today is first a sort of introduction about the general concept of generative AI in the software industry. Some challenges where we believe that solar software development and solar software and platforms in general suffer from. And then we will jump and talk in depth about the advancement and the automation, the current automation, the future automation in the solar sector, regarding both robotics and the software, the solar software industry. We will pass on some real use cases and some demos we developed for that, for the purpose of the demonstration of that technologies of these days. And finally, we will conclude where we will see later. So let's try to introduce some concepts about and realities about generative AI. First, I think one way to understand the potential behind generative AI, and one important reason to understand why we should start exploiting these emerging technologies in the solar industry, is to understand the potential of generative AI, whether in the we're talking about the software industry or even about whatever vertical we'll be mentioning later. So this figure shows a kind of comparison between the amount of spending on generative AI and SaaS, when SaaS was a thing at early stages. So the main message or the main insight to extract from this figure, that the amount of penetration or the amount of spending on generative AI within the next 4 to 5 years is expected to hit 10% of the total enterprise software spending, which is 3 times more the penetration or the amount of spending on SaaS back at early stages. So at the first 4 to 5 years of the SaaS days. And I think this is more or less shows how huge and how significant is the impact of generative AI when it comes to the enterprise software industry. One other concept it would be nice to get familiar with, I think it's a bit trendy these days, especially on LinkedIn. It's a nice approach to perform some marketing campaigns, but also there is a reality behind this concept, which is AI agents. AI agents is not a very new concept. It always existed, but maybe these days we're talking about a new architecture, since the LLM technology was introduced in a good way, in a proper way, let's say a couple of years ago. So what AI agents are: intelligent entities built on large language models, LLMs, enhanced with memory, tools, functions to perform actions, and a knowledge base to overpass and overcome the limitation of the existing knowledge behind training the data of those models. How they work: they operate within a defined environment. So they listen, execute, report back, and finally disappear. So we're talking about no persisting apps. We're just talking about results reporting and a proper and insightful message delivery here. I invite you to take a look on some of the most successful stories behind agentic frameworks. Here we have Perplexity, Cursor, and Replit. These companies, maybe some of them 2 or 3 years ago, they didn't even exist. Now they are in billions when it comes to valuation. They offer some very nice production-ready frameworks and development environments. They operate mainly in the software development and software enterprise sub-vertical and vertical. However, it would be nice at some point to see similar success stories in the solar software industry. So one question which would be nice to answer is, what are the main challenges PV platforms face today? So first, we have fragmented ecosystems. And the issue here is that at every single stage in the value chain, users might have to use some very different platforms or software. And if you can imagine that they have to do the same thing, the same user profile has to use and has to go through these different software and platforms in every single stage of the value chain. This could be kind of distracting, considering that these services or these products usually are coming from different service providers. So here we're not talking about one consistent and one complete pipeline, but we are talking about very different entities. So this might be distracting for the user, especially we're not expecting that those users will have different, let's say, expertise through all these, the complete value chain. Then we have data overloading, and you can expect that a tsunami of data will be generated at every single stage in the value chain. This tsunami of data will be coming out of these platforms, and sometimes it's really hard to deal with this data, considering the different structure and the fact that the structure of this data is not unique and is not atomic. So, for example, talking about the performance and reality platform, one of the main, let's say, entities and feature in those performance reliability platform is dashboard, where users can visualize the performance of their PV system or PV plant. And sometimes it's really hard to extract insights from those dashboards, considering the amount and the size of data being generated out of the PV system. And even if your platform is offering advanced filtering features, sometimes it's still not really easy to extract the proper and relevant insights out of these dashboards. And finally, inconsistent interfaces. So we're talking about many platforms through the different stages of the value chain. For every single service provider, when they would like to introduce a new feature, they ended up introducing a widget or a new screen. And most of the time, when you start stacking more and more screens and interfaces in these platforms, users could get lost and they might end up using a small portion of the platform. So another question we would like to answer before start connecting things together is, how much automation is expected to be introduced by 2030? So here we see some numbers. After we did a sort of intensive market research, we tried to understand the current level of automation in the solar industry. And through every single stage in the value chain, we can see some very different numbers. So for example, the lowest level of automation, it's happening in the construction installation phase, which makes sense considering that physical engagement and presence is very necessary to complete the different tasks at that stage, while we could see higher values or ranges of automation at the component manufacturing, considering that at the production line, we have more certain and more controllable conditions, considering to the uncertain or compared to the uncertain conditions we might face in the different shapes and the different conditions at the site when talking about the construction and installation phase. So after, let's say, studying the existing and the emerging technologies when it comes to the computing infrastructure is being introduced, these data improvements at the robotics field, and the improvements at the artificial intelligence in general, and specifically the generative AI capabilities which start to appear these days, we came out to a conclusion that these numbers could be reached by 2030 in case we are capable of unlocking the full potential of the existing and emerging technologies by that year. So we believe that we already have the required, let's say, technical expertise and the required technical requirements to apply or and to reach these numbers. Is just a sort of, let's say, going in that direction and spending enough time and money to unlock the full potential of these technological entities, talking about generative AI, predictive AI, robotics, computing infrastructure, and so on. We could reach this number, and I think in many cases this number could be even conservative, even though we're introducing a sort of uncertainty in these different ranges. I think if someone is interested even in more numbers or even in the mathematical model behind these values, we will be publishing soon a report where we introduce, let's say, in details how these numbers were calculated and how we expect the process of unlocking the full potential of these technologies might take place. So maybe we don't have time to pass on each single stage of the value chain. I want to see, let's say, the expected jump in automation level, but we might pass over some selected phases in the value chain. So if we start talking and taking a look on the construction and installation, and we see that these days we have an automation level estimated from 5 to 10%, which is kind of low. But again, as we said, considering that physical engagement is very necessary, it's not really easy to, let's say, as it happens in software and in works which is being done through digitalization, to jump to a really high levels of automation. However, it's really nice to see that now there is a significant movement toward having a robotics field and robotics solution for the reason of constructing and installing PV systems. Here we have two examples from an Italian company and a Chinese company operating in remote areas in Australia. And it's being claimed that this kind of robotic solution is capable of doing the job of 3 to 4 humans, which is not gonna just increase the capability and the productivity and accelerate the process of installation and construction of PV plants, but it's also considering that sometimes it's a nightmare to take care of the logistics processes of having people in really remote areas and areas where we expect to have harsh weather conditions. This kind of technology and innovation could really help in solving for those issues. Another phase where we think that digitalization can also, and AI automation can take place, is operating maintenance. And here we will show a small demo where we exactly have the same concept we introduced before, AI agents in a hybrid framework working with the field robotics. So I will play the video. So what we have here is sort of different AI agents with different expertise. One AI agent doing the failure detection from performance data. Another AI agent is doing the inspection or taking care of the inspection process. And another AI agent controlling a field robot which exists already in the field. The first agent responsible for detection, asking the other agent which controls the robot, to go and take a picture of the front of the PV string after it already localizes the issue, detects nothing, asks for an image from the back of that string, detects nothing, asks the robotics or the agent which controls the robotic solution to check or to perform an inspection or a thermal inspection imaging, detects a hotspot after taking an infrared imaging. Once this hotspot is being detected, a ticket can be opened and the report can be generated and stored in the asset management platform. Even the operator or the human behind this responsibility can be directly notified. Maybe the nice thing here is that the human was totally excluded from that loop. still some people could feel more confident to have the human in the loop, even if just for the purpose of checking, let's say, the workflow and the way those agents are collaborating. But the nice thing that for some tasks, having field robotics and having AI agents could be ambitious, but could consider also excluding totally the human from this operating and maintenance loop. Another, maybe some interesting demos which can be introduced at the vertical or at the stage of the asset management and trading is this kind of conversational agent. So what we have here is a user, the owner of the PV system, and a conversational agent. This agent has access to both performance data and electricity prices. The user reaches the agent and starts a conversation with it, asking if how is my system is doing for today. The agent answers back that I will give you and I will deliver those insights. However, how you would like me to deliver those insights? Are you looking for numbers? Are you looking for just general insights? Considering that some users' profile are not really full of technical expertise, he's asking for just emojis. So I just want to understand how my system is performing. The agent is answering back with a thumb up and cloudy emojis referring to the weather condition at that time. The user is even asking a follow-up question, asking whether he should use the washing machine or whatever appliance for that time. And considering that, again, the agent has access to the electricity prices, to the production of the PV system, even to some grid data, he can answer this question. So he's answering by that the user might be, it's better to wait, considering that your production or the production of your PV system is not the highest, and also considering that the prices of electricity is kind of high now. So for this kind of demo, maybe it's kind of relevant for maybe commercial and small size and residential PV system, but it's also nice to see that dashboards and complexity can be totally bypassed. So we're still delivering deep insights without having to show and visualize some fancy dashboards and data streams to the users. One final demo. Maybe, as I said, the previous demo was more oriented to small PV system. This demo could be oriented to more to PV to utility scale PV system or to large and mid scale PV systems. So what we see here is, again, a user talking to another conversational agent. This user is communicating vocally with that agent, so he knows already that the agent has access to the digital twin, to the performance of that PV system, and to other data. The user is asking whatever ticket we have for now on the PV system. The agent is answering back with by retrieving the ticket at that time, which is this ticket related to the hotspot we already saw before. The user asks back and asks a follow-up question if he can receive the image related to that open ticket, which is again the image of that thermal inspection being done in the previous demo. And the user keeps interacting with that conversational agent, asking for other questions related to the assets in his PV plan. So asking about the module sensors he has installed in that PV system and receiving the information. This kind of, let's say, data diffusion examples is kind of nice, not just because first, the way of delivering the data is through having a dialogue, but also the fact that such kind of information usually is being accessed and is being extracted out of the different platforms. So maybe we're talking about the asset management platform, the digital twin, the performance and reliability, so the monitoring platform. And sometimes it's really, as we said, that those data or those products are being provided by different service providers. It could be really hard, or it could, let's say, take a lot of time for the user to go and start switching between the different platforms to extract the different insights. So the final takeaway, I hope we are in time. We believe that generative AI will be transforming the PV software industry, but also, as we saw, the robotics and the physical presence in the field. unlocking new possibilities for innovative products and features. Here we're talking about shifting from total static and additional software to autonomous conversational workflows. So through a dialogue, users can get all the information they're looking to. Agents driven, not UI driven. So we believe that AI agents can be replacing some traditional UI based applications, which is going to enable more intuitive interaction with the software. And finally, we expect users to be more as orchestrators, not as traditional and classical interfaces users, since interfaces are becoming as conversations, which is going to allow users to define their intent while the AI agents will manage the execution of that intent. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mousa. Great presentation. Nice overview. We are running a bit behind time, so I would suggest if anyone has a questions, please ask Mousa in the chat, and then he'll be happy to answer. And of course, there's also an upcoming report, as he announced. So stay tuned for that one.